Hi, Asita. It's such a treat and honor to be sitting here with you today. Thank you for making the time. Really appreciate it. As a member of the European Parliament, I would love to just have you give your own introduction, your identity, your identities, and what sort of brought you to this place and time in your life.
Well, that's a very big question. Look, thank you for having me today. I am excited to have this conversation. I'm Belgian. I'm representing Belgium in the European Parliament. I was elected for the second time in June 2024 to be member of European Parliament. I'm member of European Parliament since 2019, so that's about 6 years. And I mainly focus on justice, home affairs, and foreign affairs. My passion lies in disrupting criminal networks, making sure that organized crime cannot thrive, that they have trouble laundering money, that they cannot finance terrorist groups, and make sure that we have proper laws to fight violence against women, to fight illegal migration, terrorism, and all kind of crime. So this is my expertise, and also to improve our justice system and our cooperation, judicial cooperation inside the EU, and also with other countries outside the EU in how to protect citizens. So you could summarize my work in my passion is to make sure that we can protect people.
Mhm.
And my passion is to make sure that people feel self-worthy, that they have access to self-determination, and that they are equal in front of justice and can access justice the same way. This is what I like to do.
Unbelievable. And this must be keeping you very busy in today's world, I'm sure. So, you are originally from Burkina Faso, and I understand you were born into a Muslim family. And when you were 5 years old, I just want to dive into your experience with female genital mutilation, which was a very early experience in your life and sounds like it shaped a lot of your future work. Is that something that you can just talk about a little bit? Your birth story and your time in Africa?
Yes, yeah, I was born in Burkina Faso. It's a country in West Africa where the official language is French, and there are many, like hundreds of local languages as well. I was a happy kid, and I was also a frightened kid. I always cohabited with fear and happiness. And so a lot of love, a lot of violence, a lot of hope, a lot of literature, which was my shelter. My early childhood, I was in remote areas without electricity or tap water. We really just had to go to the well to fetch water. And that was a task for girls. Boys did not fetch water. And boys could only play. Girls were there to serve boys. It's a community, the kind of community where it's actually very easy to be a boy when you are a child. But I think it's very sad when you become a man, because then you learn nothing and you're dependent. You cannot be self-reliant even when you are hungry. So no mother or no father should ever raise a boy to be that dependent, because we think that we're giving them power, but we're making them powerless, and they become sad, lonely, older men. So I grew up in a community like this. Of course, I never accepted to be treated differently. I wanted spontaneously the same rights as boys. Of course, I grew up with 4 brothers. I fought with them a lot. So it was a good preparation also to be in parliament with so many men, not scared to fight them. I fought with them a lot, and it transformed them. They became really feminists in the long run. But as a child, it was not easy as a girl. First, I had to endure a lot, and you need to fight. You cannot just enjoy life. What helped me was my endless curiosity. I wanted to learn how to live my life, to design it, to not have the life that other girls and women had. When I grew up, I wanted to be free, but I did not have a manual. I had no idea what it actually meant to be free. The only thing I knew is that it was not what was in front of me, is that whatever was being prepared for me, I did not want it. I didn't want to become the wife of some random guy that I probably did not choose, or that I have to. Why should I even be married? So these were existential questions for me. And it led me to ask many questions. And when you ask too many questions in certain cultures, you really receive punishment. So I stopped asking questions orally and started asking them in my head. And that brought me to reading a lot of books, every book leading to something else. So the library became my place, and also my bridge to a relation with my dad. We read the same books. He would find any book for me. That was his way of telling me that he loved me. Any book I wanted, I asked him and he would find it. But after undergoing female genital mutilation, I was between 5 and 6 years old, and I could not find answers in books. That's when I started writing a lot for myself, first for myself. Then I knew that information was very important, that we needed to know answers for the questions that we have, and that we cannot stop asking questions. And that's when I started thinking that maybe I will be someone who is looking for answers, that I will be someone who can provide them, that maybe I will become a journalist, that maybe I will speak on the radio. They seem to know whatever they were speaking about. Then maybe I would write books. And I started really writing a lot for myself. And the questions I could not ask loudly, I did ask them in my notebooks. And I was basically doing two things: helping my mom with chores, being the only girl at that time. My sister was born when I was 15, so I had plenty of time to be the only girl in the house who had to do chores. And next to that, reading and writing, studying were really my passion. And I'm so lucky because today that's exactly what I'm doing: reading, studying, and learning something and deciding, oh my God, this law should not be like that. What can I do? And then find something, try to do something that nobody did before, and have the right people to work on it together. This is actually what I've learned. But undergoing female genital mutilation did not shape me. What shaped me is the way in which I dealt with it after that. I did not let it shape me, because if it did, it would turn me into what tradition wanted me to become. They wanted to become a submissive woman, to only exist like a uterus and not have my own mind. Of course, I live in a body that can never heal, but I have my own mind, and that is how I shape myself.
And how was your family supportive or not supportive within your moments of curiosity as a child?
Well, for my mom, as long as I did my chores,
Yeah.
I actually was an expert in escaping chores to read. I would do anything to read a book. And when I see children today who don't want to read books, I really don't understand. It's so amazing to read a book. A new world opens up where you can actually be anything. And it's just endlessly beautiful and powerful to enter that world in your head and read for yourself. So I think it's something that we need to fight to get back in society. For me, I would do anything. And my parents had one objective when it came to reading. Their goal was sometimes to just have me stop reading.
And opposite.
Stop reading, stop studying. And
so how did that work? Were you raised in a traditional home? It sounds like you weren't. It sounds like they were open for you to learn beyond sort of what the expectation was of it.
That's the paradox. Right. It's the paradox because they wanted me to be educated. They enjoyed the fact that I was very knowledgeable. I knew I could have any conversation. Intellectually, I was existing. And for me, it was very important because I did not feel my existence as an emotional being. And since I have been subjected to such a violence when I was a kid that would determine my life, I think, and I discovered later on, that part of me stopped growing up, and I became, in the way in which I decided I wanted to grow up, I became an intellectual being. I focused more on confirming my existence to myself by being intellectually capable. My mind could be alive. This was, for me, the most important thing. And I did not have any questions or any curiosity about my body. The important was my mind. And so when you live like this, of course, the only thing that will also push you forward when you are in a traditional religious community, it will help you become independent. because you will land a job, you will grow, you will thrive, you will be a straight A student and everything. But the other part of me needed to grow up too. And I couldn't grow that part of me until I became an adult, until I even became a mother myself, before I can actually think, oh my God, part of me did not grow up. And I know now that I have to grow it. I have to address it. And I did. I kind of started educating myself for the part that I have been locking down, actually, because it was just too painful. I felt powerful when I read better Anna Arendt than any guy was in front of me. I felt powerful when I could speak about Voltaire and someone else cannot that much. I felt free. But the freedom extends because the point is they want us, vicious religious and traditional culture wants women to not open up emotionally. They want us to be like robots serving other people. I was a robot servicing myself, but serving community as well, the way I wanted to. But it is that brought me to think more about what is happening actually massively when you have 200 millions of women who have been genitally mutilated worldwide. And you have in Europe 500,000 women who actually are living with the lifelong consequences of female genital mutilation. And where I was born in Burkina Faso, 75% of women and girls underwent female genital mutilation, survived. Some even die. But when I think of that, and what is the society impact, and what is the impact in controlling the mind of women or their bodies or their choices, how do you actually manage to escape the reduced self-worth that they give you and rebuild your self-esteem? Because that is huge, what we need to do to rebuild self-esteem. I used intellectual capacity to build my self-esteem. But at a certain point, you need to build your self-esteem independently from your intellectual capacity. And of course, I ask myself these questions and I researched for answers. But there are plenty of women who did not have the intellectual luxury to be curious about that and to reflect about this. So it brought me to write my first book on self-determination. And I told my editor, I was writing all the time. I remember I write in trains, in planes, in buses. I don't write in the office. And I was in the train to Paris and I wrote my first book on the train to Paris. And the train to Paris is very fast. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes. And I wrote so fast. And I was like completely soaked in tears and emotion. And I wrote it about this topic. And I thought it's not about female genital mutilation. As I was writing, I knew it was not. Of course, I was speaking about female genital mutilation, but it was not. It was about self-determination, and it was about self-worth, and it was about everyone. It was about humanity. It was not about women. It was not about women from Africa. I wanted anyone who would read my book to feel connected with part of self that is actually wanting self-determination and how to stand up after hardship. This was what I wanted to write about. And I felt when I finished writing the book that this was what I wanted to say, that there was nothing more or less that I wanted to say about it. And I would publish it only when the editor understood what it was about, that it was not about female genital mutilation. And they eventually understood my point. And when the book was published in 2013, it was called Because You Are a Girl, Story of a Circumcised Life. And I received so many messages from men who said, no man wrote to me about my book without saying, I was thinking about my mom. I was thinking about my daughters. I bought 2 of them. I gave one to my mom and one to my daughter. This is what I wanted to achieve, to transcend the situation of the survivor and go beyond that. And this was a reward. And each time I met a woman who said, oh, thank you for your book. My mom and I finally talked. That was amazing to me. Or, oh, my mom finally decided they won't cut my sister. That was incredible. And I had reactions from all over the French-speaking world when I spoke about it. And this was what I wanted to do. And I thought using my voice was my way to contribute to end something that has been hurting so many women during their whole life, and using other women as gatekeepers of the submission to continue implementing a system that is oppressive for women.
What is it like for you as a mother to have a daughter and know that you've broken that cycle for your daughter?
Well, I don't ask myself that question very much because it seems very obvious for me. I knew that I would never allow any of the things that happen to women to happen to me or to my child, that I would work hard to protect my own destiny. And the reason why I always worked very hard, I started working when I was 15 while I was studying. I was a photographer and I wanted to be financially independent because I've learned that if you don't have your own money, you cannot have your own life. It's not possible. You can have a lot of philosophy, a lot of theories, but sorry, you need to pay the bill at the end of the day. And I wanted to pay my bills. That was my only way to have my own voice at home. And this is the kind of mother I want to be for my daughter, trying to be. And I also want to be a mother to whom she could come with emotional questions. With all the questions, I had nobody to go to because I was surrounded by adults. But what kind of adults? You know, the French philosopher and feminist Simone de Beauvoir wrote in a very famous book called The Second Sex. She wrote that adults are actually children full of age. I don't know if it's in that book or any other because I read all her books. One of her books she wrote that qu'est-ce qu'un adulte, un enfant gonflé d'âge, which is in French, what is an adult? A child full of age. And that is the case of so many adults who actually did not have the tools to give part of the emotional education to children. And I wanted to be a competent parent that could give that. So it led me to learning a lot that I did not receive when I was growing up, because that's also what is taken away from so many people.
And is that healing to have been able to make that change and be that person to your own child?
I think that, you know, telling your story in a certain way to help community also helps you heal because, you know, why do people write books? Honestly, because we don't know what we're talking about. I wrote 4 books and for each of them, I've learned a lot while I was doing it. You're very sure, but then you end up writing something else that you intended and you just reach a destination and you enjoy the ride or suffer during the ride. But at the end of the day, you learn something new. And in fact, life is also like that. It's just a ride. And we never finish healing. We never finish learning. For me, it's a work in progress. I learn a lot from my daughter too. And we need to be open to learning. And I learn a lot from other people. And there are stuff that we need to unlearn as well. And that is a very important part of the process.
So speaking of unlearning, you speak a lot about feminism and how the Western women ignore the realities of women outside of the West. What is your definition of feminism that you would love to impart on Western feminists?
Well, one word that we use a lot in French is universalism. My feminism is the feminism of Simone de Beauvoir, where all women are equal and where choosing submission when you can do something else is actually betraying the rest of women because you are helping shape a common destiny that is discriminating them. My feminism is the feminism of Virginia Woolf, where she will say you need to have your own room. Of course you need to have. My mother didn't have one. Otherwise, I would have not endured what I endured. Her mother did not either, but they had a dream. And that dream helped shape me. My grandmother was a feminist. She fought her fights too. She divorced in the 70s as a Muslim woman. Who does that? And walk 500 kilometers. I don't know how to say that in miles, but it's very far.
It's a lot of miles.
It's a lot to get away from the guy. So she did that and she inspired generations. And, you know, my daughter is an artist and studying art and she painted my grandmother because she was inspired by what she did. So what you do gives something to the next generations. Even if you do not succeed completely, at least you started part of the journey. That is going to be our common journey. So I'm very proud of that. And it helped give me a sense of self to initiate certain changes in my own life and to be inspired for the rest of community. Feminism is not something that you can lock down in one word, like the word feminism itself. I was a feminist before I even knew that word. I knew my brother was not more important than me. I knew that it was not because he was a boy, my first brother, that he could be smarter than I was. I knew that the only difference between a good result and a bad one was hard work and focus. I knew that. And you don't need to be a boy or a girl to know that. You just need to be someone who chooses to focus and who chooses to work. And for me, it was very important to not believe in predetermination. but to believe in our capacity to shape our own destinies. And that is feminism. It is self-respect. It is grasping opportunities. It is having the power of wanting, and not only wanting, but also acting to achieve. And my feminism is also people who dare to show vulnerability. Like, if you cannot embrace your vulnerability, then you cannot actually say that you're fighting. And if you pretend that you're never scared, that's also not true. So I like authenticity. And I think that being a feminist is standing for justice, is respecting oneself. It's standing up when we fall and accepting that it is okay to fall sometimes, and not sell nonsense to other people. Like, there are women who reach the top and who say, oh, this is how we did it. And you look at them and it looks like they never ever had one painful moment in their lives. But that is just nonsense. Honestly, I cry sometimes in the process of negotiating laws because I'm so upset. And I have one advisor who knows that when I'm hungry, we need to stop. So he always has a banana or something. And he'll say, like, do you want a banana? I'm like, okay, let's take a break. And I feel also scared sometimes when I need to speak up about something because I know that I'm a minority, for example, in that conversation.
Yeah.
And then I imagine all the people who have always been supporting me. And I imagine when I go home and my daughter asks me, Mom, did you have a day that you can be proud of? Because we have that question actually every evening. I want to say, yes, I did.
Yeah.
And that's what guides me. And don't let anyone fool you. Nobody is as strong as they say. Everyone is scared. You just do your best.
100%. So when you talk about being a minority in your opinions, I'm truly baffled because when I think of Europe today and the immigration policies and integration, political identities, there's so much taboo surrounding that. It's failed integration with all the jihadism that's going on. And I'm curious, what would successful integration look like if Europe had done it properly and successfully? What would that look like?
Well, successful integration would look, and I'm not being like, not humble, would just look like someone like me. And I'm not the only one. You can see people like Kemi Badenoch in the UK. You can see women like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was Netherlands. You can see many people who actually adapt. What is integration? It's very simple for me. I don't know why it's complicated for certain people. It means that you learn the language of the place where you live, that you find yourself a job and add value to society instead of taking advantage of it, and that you respect the laws, that the laws of a society where you live are above your own religious values. You cannot put your own values and tradition above the law, because then you are outside the rules. Even if you become a member of a gym, there are rules in that gym. And a country is like a super big gym with more rules. When you become a member of that, meaning you get a nationality, then you get rights, but also responsibilities. And a minimum is to contribute economically and to contribute in society and at least educate your children. Be a responsible citizen. It's not very complicated.
Yeah.
And, the problem is, why it is complicated is that so many people do not want anyone to integrate because it's easier for them to keep people in a situation where they cannot integrate, especially the socialists. And you would have certain left-wing people who want people with migrant descent to be victims so that they can use them as voters, as a reservoir of voters who never escape. And they can also use them as an excuse to explain their own mediocrity. Why do certain people want migrants to be mediocre? I mean, there is nothing that one can learn that the other one cannot. So excellence is the goal of integration, regardless of where you are coming from. It is you that can shape your destiny. That's what we need to advocate for. Unfortunately, we did not succeed, not in Europe and not in the US.
So do you believe that integration could lift people up? You believe that the migrants could successfully integrate and become the use of their country?
I think it's possible. I believe strongly in that because I've always believed in the human power to shape their own destiny. I believe in that. I do not believe that everyone can achieve the same goals, but I believe that everyone can achieve some contribution in society, and that it's not very difficult to respect the law. You just need to respect it. That's it. Non-negotiable even. It's even not a choice. These are the laws and you comply with them. If you don't want to comply with them, nobody is forcing anyone. If you want to live in France or in Belgium and you want to treat your wife like you are in Iran, personally, I don't know what is stopping you from moving to Tehran and just do exactly that there.
Why move in the first place to like a democratic country if you're not carrying those values? What's the goal of then immigrating to that country?
Well, I mean, we need to ask these people because I wouldn't know why. There is a reason why I didn't migrate to Saudi Arabia or Iran. I just know that is not my value. I don't want to live there.
Right.
If I had moved to Japan, I would learn Japanese and I would actually respect Japanese tradition and law. That is it. Maybe if I see that they don't respect women, I know that economically it's very difficult in Japan. I would be one of the people. As a citizen, you have the right to fight for change. But it has to be change that will improve society. Successful integration is not only good for people with migration descent, it is also good for the society as a whole. Because it will empower you as a person and it will empower society because everyone will end up adding value.
Sure.
And we will have a society where there is less polarization. We'll have a society where freedom to think is more sustained. We'll have a society where economic empowerment is better, where a big group of people is not depending financially on the other part of the society, like in the European social system. And it is contribution in society. And when we do not succeed with integration, then we have problems. People giving the impression that all migrants are like this. It's not serving migrants. And the discrimination of migrants who actually integrate because they are seen, and I experience this personally every day as well, as people who betrayed community. You will be seen by those who don't want to integrate as someone who is actually not being a good Black person. And you will be seen by left-wing white people as a bad Black person too. I'm like a super bad Black person.
Yeah,
apparently.
like a sellout.
Yeah, and usually you just are a person and you have the right to be who you are. And I want to own my own mind regardless of what my color is. And I usually even never think about my color. It's these people to remind me of, and then I thought, oh my God, yes, of course we have colors, but why does it even matter? We had Martin Luther King Day this week. He said also that it is the content of our character, not the color of our skin, that should be judged. And that is what he dreamed about for his kids. This is what we as society should also achieve. And it's never too late to do that. But it's too late to being late as we are. It's very important to.
So when you talk about the socialist politicians who are trying to grab the vote of the immigrants, but so often it's turning into violence and crime, do they not see that like Europe is slowly like imploding within itself because of their policies? Like I can understand if they want the vote, but when these policies and the people that ironically these socialists are really bigoted against these people because they don't believe in their ability to succeed. I mean, it's leading to jihadism. It's leading to, the slow destruction of Europe. Do they just not see that? And if not, what do they see it as? What is their feeling towards these immigrants?
I think the socialism is just something that destroys other people's worth and wealth. And Thatcher was right about it. Also, they use other people's money, so it's very easy because when they say you don't need to work, you don't need to study, you don't need to become self-reliant, you can just vote for us and then we are going to tax everyone who is working hard, going to tax them too much, and then we can use money to give you plenty of stuff for free. What are they actually saying? This is racism because they don't believe you can actually do more.
Right.
First is racism, and second, it's easy because it's not their money. It's other people's money. And as Margaret Thatcher said, socialism is using other people's money and then it stops when they run out of other people's money. They use other people's money for that. And they also use your children's money because they tax all your future income as well today. And even when you are dead, they still tax you because you have all kind of heritage taxes as well.
Yeah.
And that is the model of, it will impact the model of society that we are building because there are those who work and those who don't get away with it.
Yeah.
And that is not fair. They don't take responsibility either. They will make sure that who works hard is forced to feel guilty for even working hard and benefiting from the hard work. And that is not fair. When you work hard, you need to be able to benefit from it. I will celebrate work. I will celebrate effort and merit. And that is the second issue. The third one is that what else can a socialist sell to be elected? except promising free things with other people's money. And if you actually escape the poverty and the intellectual and societal domination that they're imposing to you and become self-reliant and earn your own money, why would you vote for the socialists? Because do you want actually to be treated? Because you are on the other side now.
Exactly.
So the socialists love it when you stay dependent forever. So I call it the win for life ticket, that they have to have eternal income based on your poverty, and they can keep you in that position because it benefits them. And this is socialism, and I think that's why it's a social poison.
And how is this related to jihadism?
I think, of course, if you do not succeed to impose integration policy, then you choose to not protect your way of life. Then you say that people are free to respect your laws or not. It is no longer a social contract. It is like an option that they can or cannot, and it depends on them. And if they do not, there are no consequences. So there is a lot of impunity, and there are cultures who are brought by people who did not integrate. You have Sharia courts in the UK, for example, and you have girls. I met victims actually in Europe, in the EU, in Netherlands, and who are victims of child marriage in their own community, or taken abroad in Pakistan or in Somalia, forced to marry someone or sold by their own families at age 12. Why is that? These are like certain radical countries' rules that are implemented on the continent of enlightenment. When we see that, why is that possible? Why do we have Sharia courts? I'm fighting for us in Europe to be able to have the same justice for all women. And when you try to convince socialists about that, they will say you are a racist because you are speaking about the domination of Muslim women. But we need to speak about them. We need to liberate all women. They need to be having access to the same justice system. As long as a woman has to go to a Sharia court and another woman has to go to normal justice, we have failed, and we did not build a system that can protect everyone. If we have parallel justice systems, we also create other avenues for crime. Because what will the boys do in certain communities when their mother cannot speak up? What do? They grow up to be kings in their own neighborhood, and they will disrespect other women who are from other communities where they learn that they can actually be free. So certain boys in Brussels, when they see a woman walking around with a skirt, they might think that you are actually available for them, and that they may disrespect you because you are not covered like girls would cover themselves in their neighborhoods. And that led them to become a mental terrorist in schools, because in schools, girls have to comply and girls undergo a lot of pressures. Teachers undergo a lot of pressure. A lot of teachers are scared. There is a book called Allah Has No Place in My Classroom, and it was going to be presented by the authors that I met in Brussels. Kids threatened the library and said if they present the book, they're going to burn the library down. And because of that, the presentation was cancelled. I called the authors and I hosted them in the European Parliament to present a book about this topic. So you can see if this book can be prevented. The book is speaking about teachers, the struggle of teachers and the struggle of girls in schools in Brussels. Then it shows that there is a problem. And that leads to domination of women, but also to being open for jihadism, because these kids will resent the society that want to impose rules to them. They did not grow up with rules or with habits, and their parents did not educate them. Mothers do not have rights or anything to say. Boys feel they are the boss of women in society. Then they grow up, and some of them will choose another way, but some will say, I hate this society because this society is against my values. And then they will turn against society, and then they can become like a target for those who want to radicalize them. There is a serious problem, and we need to face it.
Yeah. So marital captivity, I know that that was a big initiative that you hosted a group of girls who were victims of this. So you're saying this is actually still going on. They're living on the continent and they're being sold or kidnapped into, is it Afghanistan, Pakistan?
These kind of countries.
And the European system, the families are selling their children and there's no way to stop it.
The families are either, so the victims that I met were sold, for example, they managed to escape. And then there are other victims who are actually victims of family and social pressure because you need to comply. So there is a moral dilemma in their head because, of course, you love your family. And then when you grow up in this kind of emotional blackmail, you need other kind of help. And that is, we need to have different kind of help for these women. Because the way in which they are pressured is linked to a deep ideological process that started in childhood. That is one aspect. And there is also the fact that they can be brought into a trap. Like, let's go and visit your grandma. She's very ill. And then when they are there, they abandon the kid there and make her marry someone. The person is underage, so you cannot go to your consulate and ask for help. Because who would even believe that someone who looks like a Somali girl who is 16 years old in, let's say, Somalia, goes to Ethiopia, to a European country's consulate and say, "Hi, I'm Dutch. Please help me go back home." And you think they're going to believe her, even if she speaks Dutch. They'll just not understand what's going on. It's just very strange. And they will call the parents because the person is not 18 years old. All kind of structures. So we have been working on how to contribute to embassy help for girls who are trapped abroad. And we are working on how to make sure that legislation can also take into account these sidelines that exist for families to still abuse their daughters.
So if there was like a debate about this in the parliament, because you've said that you've tried to bring some of these topics to debate about like radical Islam and how it's impacting the European way of life. What's the other side of the debate? What is the person you're debating saying in response to the logic and justice and rationale and correctness of what you're saying? What is there to say on the other side?
You know, the thing is, when you start speaking about these topics, someone would just stand in front of you and tell you that you're a racist in a conversation.
But isn't it a racist to believe that a woman's not worthy because she's a different culture? And to say, no, we're not going to intervene. That's her culture. I mean, isn't there just like universal norms that a girl cannot be raped, a girl cannot be mutilated, a girl cannot be sold into marriage, no matter who you are, no matter what the culture is. They're just these norms are...
You know, there is, now I'm trying to translate it directly from my head in Dutch to English. There is kind of a cognitive dissonance in the head of so many people who do not want to defend all the women's rights. They are not coherent because, of course, our rights are universal, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And when there is no point that some girls have less rights than others and vice versa. But there are people who will say, yes, the rights are universal, but when it is about the pain of women and girls inside a certain religion and a certain tradition, then they will suddenly not do anything. And what I've observed is that it is always the case in such a situation. When it is about Muslim girls or Muslim women, they will not speak about it because they think that when they speak about it, they're being racist. And anyone else who is speaking about it is being racist. So this is cognitive dissonance because you don't know how do they even go from one point to the other. I don't understand it. And they will even really feel it so strongly that they will actually judge you and become brutal. And I don't see any difference between the pressure that those people would put on me and the pressure that the radical Muslims will put on me. Because actually, if you really want people to be safe, then you work for them to be safe. You do not discriminate based on religion.
Of course.
But they do, and it is always the same. I am trying since 5 years now to make sure that marital captivity is in the legislation. And I never so far had a majority for it. They will say, well, yeah. So now we had a very good event. We are in good talks with the Commission. I am confident that we will reach a possibility to have a legal base, to have a legislation about it, and that we will work to implement it. But it is abandoning a big part of society. You know, they used to tell some of my white colleagues, you are racist. And then I noticed one woman hesitating in one debate, media debate one day in front of me because I was saying exactly the same things. And she was like about to say that I was racist. And then she was confused because she didn't know how to say that. And then she said that I was, and that what she said was very racist. She said that I was actually unaware of how my skin color is being used to use me in politics because, of course, suddenly she turned. If I was white, she would say I was racist. And because I'm Black,
you're
first
being
she
tokenized.
Assumed, she will say I'm being tokenized, but she used a different kind, like she really wanted to save me. She really wanted to help me. And how racist is that? So this is so racist, like I don't own my own mind and I really need to become normal. Maybe she will convert me back to socialism or whatever. And I asked her, how do you want to do that exactly? That was the end of the debate, but she never actually recovered very much from this conversation, and she never wanted to speak about it again. But this is the example of how they do. And we cannot accept this kind of people to build legislation and to design laws to protect our children. I want my daughter and all our daughters to grow up in a society where women are equal, truly equal.
So I want to just move on to Israel. I understand that you've been to Israel, and I'm curious, what is it about the Jewish people in Israel that so many European politicians don't understand, and why do you understand it? You used the word self-determination earlier, which triggered Israel for me and Zionism. Is there something about the Jewish people or Israel that resonates with you?
Look, I will say, in fact, all people are equal. That is how I see society. It's very simple. I don't believe that people, depending on their religion or on their skin color or their geographic belonging, should be treated differently. I believe that all lives have value, and that the persecution of a community or a person, depending on who you are, is completely unacceptable. And when I face injustice, then I fight it. So when I saw injustice against people because they are Jews, I fought it. When I see injustice against Muslim women, I fight it. When I see injustice against innocent people, just because we could not tackle organized crime, and just because they're being used for drugs, I fight it. This is who I am. So for me, there was no point in being indifferent when there was persecution of people because they're Jewish, because everyone have the right to exist. That's really a bare minimum.
So it's just as simple as that for you.
I don't know why it's complicated for people to just understand a very simple thing.
European governments see Palestinians, unlike you, which sees everybody as equal. Why are they only seeing them as victims? And why are there not discussions on how to actually change their lives and help them build and self-determine? What is the proclivity to constantly see them as victims, as well as to fund organizations like UNRWA that are certainly not helping them to build lives and to thrive?
I think, and I've been fighting for it, I think that the EU needs to change its mind in the way in which we're using money. And again, it is the influence of too much socialism. The waste of money is dangerous because this money is going to be serving a purpose that we did not choose. And that is what I'm saying. Why are we investing in organizations that actually are being misused by Hamas or Hezbollah? Why are we not putting the Muslim Brotherhood on the list of terrorists in Europe, while we know that the branch in Palestine is Hamas, for example, that they have plenty of NGOs in Europe who benefit from support, that indirectly think that say that they're fighting discrimination, but in fact, they're actually fighting freedom. And trying to feed the radicalism. So we need to be very careful where we are putting our money. Is it really where our values are? And control it, be accountable. We cannot waste taxpayer money to finance crime indirectly. And second, one thing we need to really examine is that I have the impression it is the same also when we look at the situation of so many Muslim women who are abandoned, is that depending on who the perpetrator is, people in Europe will actually find reasons to not be angry with the perpetrator. Like the radical Muslim perpetrator is an eternal victim, actually. When they are parading the body of Shani Luke on a lorry, speeding on her and shouting Allah Akbar, they see them as victims. But I see that the victim is Shani Luke.
How do they see the perpetrators as the victims?
Because of what they do. Actions speak louder than words. Because of what they do after that, the silence after an innocent girl like Shani Luke was paraded by bearded men shouting Allah Akbar. The silence after that about the link between radical Islam and this action and deep, deep anti-Semitism and hatred against women is completely unacceptable. So this is appalling, and this is like a moment of shock because you see them and we saw you see them and still you think it's not them. I don't understand how one cannot say immediately, this is the effect of radical Islam. These bearded men are not shouting Allah Akbar by accident. They're shouting it because of a reason. And that is the reason that we need to stop feeding the radicalism. And if we're not honest about that, then we are considering the perpetrator as the victim, and we are not helping the victim.
Right. So you've been ostracized for fighting against anti-Semitism and opposing radical Islam. Why has defending Jews become so controversial in European politics?
Well, I don't think I've been ostracized. I think I've been put a lot under pressure, but it's not new to me. I have always defended controversial things, and not because I thought, oh, look at something controversial, now I'm going to defend it. No, that's not how it goes. And I don't even know why these topics are controversial. When I was a child, I fought against the domination of girls in a society where I was growing up, and I had nothing. I was just a child. I was a child, I had nothing, literally nothing. I had just the capacity to read and think, and I had one pair of sandals. That's all I had.
Yeah.
And I fought it. Today, I have a seat in parliament. Why will I not fight injustice?
Right.
That would be so lazy and so stupid if I have to face the little girl in me that fought with nothing. So when I see injustice, I fight it because I think I have the means to do so, or to do my best to try. And when I see the situation of Muslim women, the way in which Jewish people are being treated, or when I see how they abandon even the Palestinians themselves by financing the wrong organizations and keeping silent about certain issues with education that is actually giving Palestinian children no other future than the future of the poison by the wrong ideology, then I'm like, we need to do something. And of course, it is even controversial to be center-right politician, to be conservative, because the fact that I even exist in politics is controversial. The fact that I think the things that I think has always been controversial. First, for the men in my community when I was a child, now to the socialists, but I'm not scared of socialists. I am not in politics to be liked. I don't care when people like me or not. What I care about is, can I look in the mirror and did I act with integrity? Did I act indifferent when I saw injustice, or did I do something against that injustice? And can I actually continue what I'm doing and face my voters again and be proud? This is what I want to do. And I'm not there to be liked. I'm there to achieve results.
So, Assita, what gives you hope?
I mean, I'm an optimist. I really believe that we can change society, and I came from very far. And when I look back, every action and every step taken gives me hope. And when I look at simple things like having a conversation with my neighbor or with kids in a school, I speak a lot in schools, or this conversation, it gives me hope because we're speaking about things, we're advancing things, and I'm an optimist. I celebrate every step that we did. The first step to start building, looking for a legal basis against marital captivity, I celebrate it. I go out and celebrate with my advisors. It's very important. I celebrate every day. I really believe that every day is a gift and we need to celebrate it. That gives me hope.
So how would you advise someone who wants to stay true to their values when an environment around them rewards silence?
Choosing to be free is very important because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to everyone else as well. It's just a matter of self-respect. Why would you do some stuff for other people to value the fake you instead of doing the right thing for other people? Maybe to hate you, but you know that you are being yourself, you are being authentic. I think it's important, but everyone is free, of course, to choose what's important for them. For me, it's very important to be who I am, to know who I am, and to act like who I am, to be in harmony with my values. It's not difficult, actually. It's just to take time for silence for yourself as well. I celebrate good habits. For me, it's very important to have a good breakfast, for example, and to share with people I love. For me, it's very important to go to bed when I ask myself the right questions. And if someone is bothering me, I will speak to the person before, or at least note down. I think it's important to know how we want to live life and to have values and act every day in conformity with them.
Thanks for listening. For more, you can visit Instagram at Grace for Impact Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please follow the show, leave a rating and review. See you next time.